This is an NBC News special report.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kristen Dahlgren. We are coming on the air with breaking news. United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley is resigning. The former South Carolina governor, who has a reputation for independence, is one of the top-ranking women in the Trump administration. She is one of the first appointments he made almost 2 years ago as president-elect and the latest high-profile departure from the Trump team. The president and Haley just wrapped up a meeting in the Oval Office moments ago. Let's go now to Andrea Mitchell in our Washington newsroom with more. Andrea, what can you tell us?
Well, Nikki Haley, clearly the most prominent woman in the administration, and possibly with her own ambitions in South Carolina, former governor. There were disputes along the way, but she kept most of them quiet. She denied that she was the anonymous critic in the New York Times, and the president apparently saying that she has a future role in the administration as well. What we don't know about is exactly the reasons why she's resigning early. We understand it was a surprise to the White House.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. And we now have tape coming in from that Oval Office meeting. Let's listen in.
Hurricane, we have another one coming, so we've done very well. North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, so many places. And we have another one coming in, a big one, much bigger than they anticipated a week ago, 7 days ago. I heard for the first time there was a very small drop of weather that looked like it was forming, and now it's pretty close to a Category 3 if it's not already a Category 3. So we are very well prepared. FEMA's ready. We're all ready. Spoke with Governor Scott. Spoke to everybody that you have to speak to, and I think that hopefully we'll get lucky, but maybe that won't happen. But we're prepared. I wanted to do this because Nikki Haley, Ambassador to the United Nations, has been very special to me. She's done an incredible job. She's a fantastic person, very importantly, but she also is somebody that gets it. She has been at the United Nations from the beginning with us, right from the beginning, and worked with us on the campaign. It's been really a long time, very intense, and she told me probably 6 months ago, she said, you know, maybe at the end of the year, at the end of a 2-year period, but the end of the year, I want to take a little time off. I want to take a little break. She's been a very successful, as you know, governor of South Carolina for 8 years. And then she did this, and this is possibly even more intense with what's going on in the world, and very dangerous and a lot of things. But she's done a fantastic job, and we've done a fantastic job together. We've solved a lot of problems, and we're in the process of solving a lot of problems. At the beginning, North Korea was a massive problem, and now we're moving along. It's moving along really nicely. I can speak for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He thinks the world of Nikki, and so we're all happy for you in one way, but we hate to lose. Hopefully you'll be coming back at some point, but you want to just, in maybe a different capacity. You can have your pick. But I just want to let you know, so at the end of the year, Nikki will be leaving, and we'll be in constant touch. I know that whenever you have any ideas, you're going to call me because you know all the players. And that was really the thing I think she did best at the United Nations. She got to know the players. She got to know China, Russia, India. She knows everybody on a very first-name basis, and they like her. Except for maybe a couple, which is normal, right? They can't all like you, but they do. They really like her, and I think maybe more importantly, they respect her. So, Nikki, I just wanted to tell you that we will miss you. We'll be speaking all the time, but we will miss you nevertheless, and you have done a fantastic job, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I want to say, first of all, I want to thank the president for just, allowing us to come out and talk to you this way. It has been an honor of a lifetime. I said I am such a lucky girl to have been able to lead the state that raised me and to serve a country I love so very much has really been a blessing, and I want to thank you for that. But I'm most excited. Look at the 2 years. Look at what has happened in 2 years with the United States on foreign policy. Now, the United States is respected. Countries may not like what we do, but they respect what we do. They know that if we say we're going to do something, we follow it through, and the president proved that, whether it was with the chemical weapons in Syria, whether it's with NATO, saying that other countries have to pay their share. I mean, whether it's the trade deals, which have been amazing, they get that the president means business, and they follow through with that. But then if you look at just these 2 years at the UN, we've cut $1.3 billion in the UN's budget. We've made it stronger, we've made it more efficient. South Sudan, we got an arms embargo, which was a long time coming. 3 North Korean sanctions packages, which were the largest in a generation, done in a way that we could really work towards denuclearizing North Korea. The Iran deal, bringing attention to the world that every country needs to understand you can't overlook all of the bad things they're doing. You have to see them for the threat that they are. I think you look at the anti-Israel bias and the strength and courage that the president showed in moving the embassy and showing the rest of the world, we will put our embassy where we want to put our embassy. You know, all of those things have made a huge difference in the U.S. standing, but I can tell you that the U.S. is strong again, and the U.S. is strong in a way that should make all Americans very proud. And I do want to say that it's not just the president I want to thank. The family in general, the First Lady has been nothing but very, very kind to me. I can't say enough good things about Jared and Ivanka. Jared is such a hidden genius that no one understands. I mean, to redo the NAFTA deal the way he did, what I've done working with him on the Middle East peace plan, it is so unbelievably well done. And Ivanka's been just a great friend, and they do a lot of things behind the scenes that I wish more people knew about, because we're a better country because they're in this administration. I also just have to say, certainly thank you to my family. Michael is a saint, and my 2 little ones, I adore them. And to Team USUN. You know, they sacrificed a lot. They put a lot of time and energy into it, but they have a lot of heart and really wanted to make America proud. And so with that, I'm not leaving until the end of the year. My goal is that we make sure that everything is in good place and for the next ambassador to come in. But it's a great day in the United States, and I'm proud to have been part of the team. Now, I don't have anything set on where I'm going to go. I think that the main thing was I was governor for 6 years, and we dealt with a hurricane, a 1,000-year flood, a church shooting, a school shooting. There was a lot. And then to come in and do 2 years of Russia and Iran and North Korea, it's been 8 years of intense time, and I'm a believer in term limits. I think you have to be selfless enough to know when you step aside and allow someone else to do the job. So thank you, Mr. President. It's been an honor of a lifetime. And I will say this, for all of you that are going to ask about 2020, no, I'm not running for 2020. I can promise you what I'll be doing is campaigning for this one. So I look forward to supporting the president in the next election.
That's so good. Thank you, Nikki.
Ambassador Haley, you listed off a long list of accomplishments. Why would you want to leave that all behind? Is it really a personal decision because you've been away from your family for so long, or is there something else too?
My family is very supportive. So no, there's no personal reasons. I think that it's just very important for government officials to understand when it's time to step aside. And I have given everything I've got these last 8 years. And I do think that sometimes it's good to rotate in other people who can put that same energy and power into it. So there really is, a lot of people are going to want to say there's a lot of reasons why I'm leaving. The truth is, I want to make sure that this administration, the president, has the strongest person to fight. It was a blessing to go into the UN with body armor every day and defend America. And I'll always do that. I'll never truly step aside from fighting for our country. But I will tell you that I think it's time.
And Mr. President, why make the announcement now as opposed to after the midterms?
Well, Nikki's going to be staying till the end of the year, which will be just about 2 years. And I just think, and I was just as Nikki was speaking, I was thinking when we came into office, it was almost inevitable in the minds of many that we were going to war with North Korea. If you ask President Obama, I'm sure he'll tell you that that was by far his biggest problem when we sat and met right here. But that looked like a real problem. Iran looked like a real problem. It was a question of when would they take over the Middle East prior to my coming here, and now Iran is fighting for their lives. They've got riots in all their cities. It's blowing up. Their inflation, their economy is in tatters. And at some point, they'll probably come and want to make a real deal, not the deal that they made, the ridiculous deal that they made. That was unacceptable to me. And so we'll see what happens. But what a difference between Iran when we first came, I'd like to say the day before we came. And also, if you look at North Korea, I mean, there was a deal that there was something that was, it was a devastating, potentially devastating problem, and now the relationships are very good. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo just left, had a great meeting, also was in China, also spoke to many of the Asian leaders or went there and had some good meetings, but had a really very good meeting with North Korea and Chairman Kim, and we've just made a lot of progress on so many other fronts also. And I think the world, as Nikki said, the world is really respecting the United States again, much more so than they have in many, many decades. We are respected again, that I can tell you, very much respected again. And people want to be on our side. Even if you look at the votes in the United Nations, I mean, votes that we would normally get no votes, we're getting very strong votes now. So I just want to thank Nikki, and I thought this would be an appropriate way of doing it, because when you write it out on a piece of paper that, you know, Ambassador Haley will be leaving, and you say nice things, people say, well, what's going on? This is the right way to do it. And when you really think somebody's done a terrific job, I felt this was an appropriate way of doing it, and we both liked it. So I just want to thank the ambassador. I just want to thank Nikki, okay?
Mr. President, what are you thinking about the successor?
Well, we have a number of people that would very much like to do it. It's a great position, and Nikki realizes it. I think she's helped make it a much better position, if you want to know the truth. I think it's become maybe a more glamorous position than it was 2 years ago. Maybe I wonder why, but it is. Yeah, I mean, she's made it a very glamorous position. She's made it a more importantly, a more important position. So we have, I can almost say, many people that want to do it, and they're very good people. And I'll be talking also to Nikki about that, and to the general about that, and to my staff. But we have many people that are very, very much interested in doing it.
You said you just saw Secretary Pompeo. Are you frustrated by the lack of actual announcements that are coming?
No, not only am I not frustrated, I think it's incredible what's happening. You're talking about North Korea? It's amazing the way the media, who are you with?
With France 24.
With who?
France 24.
France.
So it's amazing the way the media says that, you know, for 80 years they couldn't do a thing. And what are we in, 3 months of negotiation? It's ridiculous. As I've said about 1,000 times, you have no rockets flying, you have no missiles flying, you have no nuclear testing, you have nuclear closings, closing up different areas of North Korea. We're getting the remains back. It's already started, of our great heroes. We got our hostages back, and I didn't pay $1.8 billion like the previous administration. I paid nothing. But I have agreed to meet, and I have agreed to spend time. But how long has it been since we left Singapore? It was 3 months or so. And people say, that's the media saying, like, how can we be negative? Let's see, he's done really well. How can we be negative? Oh, are you disappointed with the speed? I think the speed is amazing. You have no nuclear tests, you have no rockets, and we have a very good relationship with Chairman Kim, which is very important. I like him, he likes me, the relationship is good. Mike Pompeo had a very, very good meeting. I mean, I spoke to him at length yesterday, and he'll be coming back. He'll be back tonight. And so, I mean, just the opposite. I think we've made incredible progress. Beyond incredible. Beyond it. I don't think that some of the press, some of the press really covers it accurately and right, but some of the press really doesn't. Yes, John?
Do you want to take this opportunity to tell us when your next meeting with King will be and where it will be?
Well, it is happening, and we're setting that up right now. That was part of the reason that Mike was going over to meet. They're setting up the meeting, and we'll be announcing that probably a different location. Singapore was fantastic, but we'll probably do a different location.
Can you get it tomorrow live?
He'd probably like that. I'd like that too. I think it would be good, but we'll see. We're talking about 3 or 4 different locations. Timing won't be too far away. We've made a lot of progress, and this meeting really is to, you know, people don't realize the importance of the first meeting. I mean, we said point number 1, denuclearization, and for some reason the press doesn't pick that up. But that was actually point number 1. They've agreed to denuclearization, and they continue to agree, and they continue. Now, we haven't removed sanctions, as you know. You know, people said, what have we done? We haven't removed sanctions. We have very big sanctions. I'd love to remove them, but we have to get something for doing
Any
it.
chance the meeting could be on U.S. soil?
Well, you know, I don't want to embarrass anybody by asking. I think eventually we're going to have lots of meetings on U.S. soil and on their soil, by the way. It's just, you know, that's a two-way street, on their soil also. I think that the country of North Korea is going to be a very successful country. I think it's going to be incredibly economically successful. And I want to make it that way. I think it's going to be great. Other countries, other people, entrepreneurs, banks, I will tell you, they're calling, wanting to go there and wanting to invest. At some point, when Chairman Kim makes that decision, I think he's going to unleash something that's going to be spectacular, really spectacular. And I think he knows it, and I think that's one of the reasons that we're having very successful conversations. I think he wants to get on with it.
Mr. President, when will a successor
Yes.
to Ambassador Haley be named?
Excuse me?
When will a successor to Ambassador Haley be named? When?
When will a successor be named?
Oh, I would say we'll name a successor, I don't know, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe sooner.
Mr. President, have you spoken to the Saudis about the missing Washington Post columnist?
I have not. No, I haven't. But I will be at some point.
What do you know at this point?
I know nothing right now. I know what everybody else does, nothing. Just
What's your response to Hillary Clinton saying last night's swearing in of Judge Kavanaugh was more a political event than it was a national event?
I guess that's why she lost. She doesn't get it. She never did. I knew that a long time ago. Hillary never got it. That's why she lost. Anything else?
Sir, the midterms are in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
What's your prediction right now for the GOP, and how's your stamina out on the campaign trail?
I think we're going to do well. What you people would say, I guess, if you saw there was a 5% drop-off, you'd say there's something wrong with the president. You would say, but no, I'm going to Iowa tonight. We have a big, big crowd. Going to make a big announcement tonight, by the way, in Iowa. We're going to be making a very big announcement. And I have to say the farmers are so thrilled with the USMCA, the new agreement. I don't use the word NAFTA because NAFTA was a disaster for our country. NAFTA, we lost millions and millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of factories and plants, and bad for farmers. You look what happened. Farmers over the last 15 years, it's only gone down. Now they're going to go up. We just opened up Mexico. We just opened up Canada. And it's great for our farmers. But I'm going to Iowa tonight, and we'll be talking a little ethanol tonight. And got some great things planned. And speaking of that, I will say, if you look at industries, the steel industry in this country is back like nothing I've ever seen before. In a period of 6 months since we started doing what I'm doing, the steel industry has literally revived. U.S. Steel is opening up 8 plants. Nucor is opening up. The steel industry in our country is really, really hot. So it's really been great. But I'll be going to Iowa tonight.
What about Secretary Pompeo's meeting in China? How did that go?
Very well.
Very well.
No, we're very well. We have a very good relationship with China. But you know, they took out $500 billion out of our country for many years, each year, and we just can't let that happen. This should have been talked about by people in this chair for many years. Look, for years and years, they were taking out $200, $300, $400, and even $500 billion a year. We helped rebuild China. If we don't do that, China's not where they are right now. And that's fine with me, but we're not doing it any longer.
You promised more tariffs on China if they retaliate.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Are you going to go forward with that?
100%. If they do that, if they retaliate, what does retaliate mean? They've already retaliated. They've taken out $500 billion. I think that's the ultimate retaliation. Now, look, China wants to make a deal, and I say they're not ready yet. I just say they're not ready yet. And we've canceled a couple of meetings because I just say they're not ready to make a deal. We can't have a one-way street. It's got to be a two-way street. It's been a one-way street for 25 years. We've got to make it a two-way street. We've got to benefit also. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions? So I just want to finish because this is really the pure reason for this is, Nikki, you've been fantastic. You're my friend. And I just, on behalf of the country, I want to thank you for a great job. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
President Trump in a wide-ranging, nearly 20-minute exchange with reporters in the Oval Office just moments ago. At his side, UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, who has just announced her resignation as the president's UN ambassador. NBC's Kristen Welker is at the White House now with some reporting on all of this. Kristen, what can you tell us?
Well, Kristen, we've been working our sources here within the Trump administration and also on Capitol Hill. And I can tell you that broadly, there is a sense of surprise that some officials here were caught off guard, particularly by the timing. The fact that this is coming exactly 4 weeks until the midterm elections. And there is also a sense of disappointment. Now, of course, it is broadly known that Nikki Haley has had her own political ambitions. She addressed that square on. She said, look, I'm not going to run in 2020. I'm going to be supporting President Trump. But does she have designs to potentially run for office in South Carolina or further down the line? That's what folks are talking about here in Washington. But I can tell you this is a sea change within the Trump administration. Nikki Haley was a critic of candidate Trump out on the campaign trail. But then, of course, as Andrea just said, she was one of his first picks to come into his administration. And she's been a staunch supporter of his and all of his foreign policy, whether it relates to North Korea, Syria, or Iran, and particularly on North Korea. You heard them spend a fair amount of time talking about that, the fact that they are in the process of planning that second meeting with Kim Jong-un. You'll recall, Kristen, that it was Nikki Haley who came out and firmly defended the president's approach to North Korea, the fact that he used that language, that fire and fury language as it relates to Kim Jong-un. She said, look, that language worked. So he is not only losing one of his top female staffers here within the Trump administration, female officials here within the Trump administration, but he's losing one of his staunchest supporters and someone who was very effective at defending him, whether it be on the foreign stage or on the Sunday shows. Kristen.
All right, Kristen Welker at the White House. Thank you. Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Hallie Jackson. Hallie, the president praising Nikki Haley, saying that she was a fantastic person, did an incredible job. As Kristen mentioned, the big question now, what's next for Nikki Haley, and then who's next for the UN?
So we know that the president, based on his remarks, will be trying to appoint a successor sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks, Kristen, which would put that announcement coming just before the midterms. Haley will stay on through the end of the year for the transition, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. The president called Haley a very special person to him. This was an amicable parting. We have not seen that always in this administration. And remember, former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson all but fired by tweet, if you will. Very different situation for Haley, who has been able to sit next to the president in the Oval Office, make this announcement on her own terms, with the president praising her. So what is next for Nikki Haley? She has long been considered a Republican rising star during the campaign in 2016, aligning herself with Senators Marco Rubio and Tim Scott, for example. So she has a political future ahead of her if she wants, although she did make clear she's not interested in running for 2020. Instead, she says she'll be campaigning for Donald Trump. Kristen.
All right, well, stay tuned, Hallie Jackson, and stay tuned for continuing coverage on MSNBC and NBCNews.com, and full details tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. For now, I'm Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News in New York.
Feeling angry at her, he wouldn't have put on that display. It's just not something he does. We know that Nikki Haley has been one of the administration officials that has been best at really threading that needle, being able to show support for the president, be 100% behind his agenda, while also dancing around some of the issues where it's clear that she disagrees, whether it be on refugees, some of the other issues where she's had some tensions with the White House. But by all accounts, she's leaving on very good terms and will continue to be an ally for the president.
Our chief White House correspondent joins us now, Hallie Jackson, standing by for us there. Let me ask you that same question there. What do we know about her relationship with the administration, Hallie? And specifically here, what do we know about that relationship with Mike Pompeo as well? A lot's been made of that.
Yeah, better than it was with Rex Tillerson, right, if you look at that, because I remember early on in the administration, she clashed notably and split on policy with the former Secretary of State. So that has not happened as much with Secretary of State Pompeo. She's very close with Vice President Pence. They are considered political allies and have been for a while. And the Vice President now coming out, I'm just getting this into my inbox, with heartfelt thanks to the UN ambassador, wishing her blessings, in the words of the Vice President, president for her and her family moving forward. When you talk about her relationship with the administration, it's interesting, right? Because I've already heard from some in Trump world, in that orbit, who say, yeah, she was kind of more the Bush-esque foreign policy and not that kind of hardline John Bolton foreign policy that we want to see. So she was somebody who had allies in certain circles, but not in others, right? She was a little divisive in that respect. But what she did well, and I think you saw that on display in this 30 minutes in the Oval Office, Craig, she developed a relationship with President Trump, and she worked on that relationship, and she seemed to understand how to manage that relationship, which is not something that every administration official has learned, as we've seen over these past 2 years. So that, to me, is part of the reason why she seems to be leaving on such an amicable note. This was very friendly. She got to sit in the Oval Office and make this announcement, make this resignation announcement on her own terms next to the president, who called her a very special person and said, hey, come back whenever you want to whatever position you want, in essence. Now, it sounds like she's not going to do that. She talks about wanting a bit of a break. She talked about 8 years, right, in South Carolina, and then on the national stage, doing a lot. And she wants to step away from that, although she said it wasn't for personal reasons necessarily, just that it was a good time sometimes for government officials to sort of cycle through. She, as you know, is considered a rising Republican star, and there's already, I'm getting a bunch of texts, speculation about what she might do next, what her political future holds. She made very clear, as she has in the past, Craig, I don't know if you've played that soundbite where she talked about not wanting to run in 2020 and campaigning for President Trump. That is something she reiterated again this morning. So if it's not a primary challenge for 2020, perhaps she has her eye on in a national role beyond that, Craig.
Let's play that soundbite, the one that you just referenced here.
Okay.
This was the ambassador speaking specifically about this idea that she might be running for president here. Here's the ambassador just a few moments ago.
I will say this, for all of you that are going to ask about 2020, no, I'm not running for 2020. I can promise you what I'll be doing is campaigning for this one. So I look forward to supporting the president in the next election.
All right, Jim Messina, you've been around this game a very long time. Historically, officials of her stature, they leave after the midterms, sometimes right after the midterms, not a few months before. Are we missing something here?
Well, look, this is political malpractice on behalf of the Trump administration, just politically, right? We're 28 days before a midterm election. You just jammed through an incredibly controversial Supreme Court pick that angered women voters across the country. The thing you don't do is the next day come out and announce the senior woman who everyone in the country knows is leaving the administration, and then you proceed to talk about the North Korea deal for 5 minutes, which I guarantee you, Craig, not one swing voter cares about. If I had done this when I was in the White House, the Democratic House and Senate leaders would have come to the White House and hit me with a bat. This is just politically stupid.
Ashley Parker, and let me preface this question by pointing out that Lindsey Graham's press secretary has already said that the senior senator from South Carolina is definitely running for re-election in 2020, and he has zero interest in serving in the president's cabinet. That being said, this idea, and some are bouncing this around already there on social media, Charlie Sykes, I'll come to you with this one. This idea that maybe Lindsey Graham, maybe he gets a cabinet level appointment, maybe perhaps Attorney General, maybe then Nikki Haley could become a U.S. Senator. Maybe she's appointed to the Senate, does a couple years there before running for something else. Crazy idea?
Well, there's a lot of maybes there, and you know, who knows? I mean, Lindsey Graham wants something, and nobody can quite figure out what it is that he wants. But look, I'm tempted to agree with Jim, but I have to say though, you know, Nikki Haley is a tremendous asset to this administration. She's been one of the stars of this administration. She's got a tremendous political future, probably on the national stage. I don't think this actually hurts the administration right now. It gave him a chance to sit next to her, to be able to run through what he regards as his foreign policy successes. But I think there's going to be a lot of speculation about this. And what he's done, though, is, intentionally or not, the spotlight is going to be on this very popular, very, very successful female Republican. And right now, this is probably what the administration and the Republicans need at the moment.
For those of us who are just joining us now on the East Coast, it is now 11:30 on the East Coast. It is 8:30 there on the West Coast. Breaking news this hour, President Trump lauding his outgoing ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, surprising all, including many in the White House, with a sudden announcement of her departure. The news was followed by lengthy comments at the White House. Haley and the president sitting side by side, applauding each other's record on foreign policy. Haley, of course, widely considered to be a rising star in the GOP. However, she did push back on those rumors of a run in 2020 versus the president, saying she is not running in 2020. She says instead she will be campaigning for President Trump. This, of course, Ashley Parker, the latest in a string of departures from this White House. Again, I think we have a graphic here to show folks at home just the sheer number of people who have left this administration. And again, we are not even 2 years in, and that's a list of the high-profile departures. Of course, this doesn't include any of the mid-level or lower-level folks. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley. I'm not sure that we've seen any of those people get the send-off that Nikki Haley just got.
You're right. She does fall into this long list of high-profile departures. That's not unique. What feels so different about this is that normally the people who end up leaving, whether they are fired by tweet, whether they resign, whether it's mutual and they're sort of given the opportunity to resign, is that there are long grumblings and rumors and stories that precede their departure. So when it comes, it's just a question of when, not if. My understanding right now, and it's still early, is that Ambassador Haley's departure caught just about everyone off guard, from the White House communication staff to the White House Legislative Affairs team to her own team at the UN to top lawmakers on Capitol Hill. And that is what is quite stunning about this. The White House was scrambling this morning to try to figure out how to manage this. The president did have her in. It was quite a send-off. It was very warm. It seems like she's doing what she did while she was in the White House, threading that line and leaving on amicable terms. But she also, no matter what she does, whether she primaries him or not, and she seemed to say she was not going to, and I think we need to take her word, she does leave separating herself from some of the potentially negative stuff that may be coming down the pipe. If Democrats win the House, whatever Mueller's investigation says, she now has these national security credentials. She is still a rising star. She has good ties to the president. And she's sort of one of these rare people leaving the administration untainted.
Right. That's true. And she's only 46 years old as well. We should certainly point that out. Let me go back to you, Jeff Bennett, there at the White House. President Trump indicating, in terms of a successor, Jeff, what are we looking at? 2 or 3 weeks? I believe that's what I heard from the president. Any idea who might be on that short list?
Not at the moment, but you're right about that. Excuse me. The president did say he would have a successor named in about 2 or 3 weeks. But look, if Democrats take the Senate in November, you saw the contentious confirmation fight that Brett Kavanaugh just went through. We could expect that to happen again, certainly if Democrats take the Senate and the president has to put up someone to confirm to add to the cabinet to replace Nikki Haley. So whoever he nominates, that's certainly going to be at the top of the thinking of White House officials here.
All right. Reaction continues to pour into this breaking news. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, resigning in a surprise move. I'll talk to the man who served as the governor of South Carolina right before Haley did, Mark Sanford, on the other side of this break.
You're watching MSNBC International.
We will not be quiet.
This guy's behavior doesn't make any sense.
We will not back down.
That seems like a foolish strategy.
We will not be manipulated or played for fools.
If they did know, that's as bad as if they didn't know.
We will remain resolute.
This doesn't look good, General.
Looking where others aren't looking.
There is something new and big that has just arisen.
Asking what others aren't asking.
Why would the president want Congress to investigate for information he already has?
And wake up ready to do it again.
Ma, you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there's Mom.
Yay!
Mom's in Colombia.
I am watching in my front yard.
Mom's talking, and there's the president. President Trump leading by example there. He also wearing the glasses.
Oh, my goodness. You can take it off now. That's why I couldn't see with the glasses on.
Ma, thank you. Thanks for giving us that.
You're welcome.
That first-hand account there from Colombia. Tell everybody hello.
Ironically, it is immigrants. It is these people that are coming from Central America. I've spoken to them, who still see this country as the beacon of freedom and democracy. And it is a country where I came here 10 years ago. English isn't my first language. I didn't have any connections, no green card. And 10 years later, I'm able to sit in this table with some of the finest journalists in the country. That is only possible in the United States of America.
Starting just after I got back from my 2 years of life changeover in Africa with the Peace Corps, I have chalked up 5 years working in the U.S. Senate, 4 in the White House, including my time as presidential speechwriter, and 6 years as top aide to Speaker O'Neill. All this background taught me how to watch politicians in action. Here on Hardball, you can expect me to discuss history as it relates to what's happening now. You can expect to hear me analyze what politicians are doing today with what I've seen other politicians do before, and this is Hardball.
Weeknights on MSNBC.
Before it was the biggest political scandal in history, before it lent its name to every other scandal for 40 years, it was just an office building, the Watergate. What happened here changed history because there were reporters who never stopped asking questions. For my generation, the questions were about WMDs in Iraq, and we learned, again, don't just accept the official line. Now, who knows where the questions will take us, but I do know this. I'm not going to stop asking them.
Rule number 10, Section 2A states a player shall not run with the ball without dribbling it. That's the rule. But what about our politics? Are there any rules anymore? And if so, will anybody play by them? These days, politics could use a little refereeing. And we're not afraid to blow the whistle.
Learn how you can help provide desks for schools in Malawi at lastworddesks.msnbc.com and watch The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell weeknights